We are at the forefront of many innovative and exciting things developing in the world of senior living. With Tim Mallad, CEO of Forefront Living, as our guide, this show will shine a light on how older adults can embrace these changes to live active, happy, fulfilling, and thriving lives. Through discussions with senior living and hospice professionals, architects and designers, and people of all ages, will help today's seniors envision the art of the possible and take steps toward achieving the future of their dreams. Welcome to At the Forefront.
Welcome to At the Forefront. I'm Tim Mallad, and today we're going to be talking about the interiors of senior living communities. And we have a really special presentation today. We're going to be looking at a lot of different communities, not just our Forefront Living communities, but others as well, to talk about trends and the exciting new things that are coming our way in senior living. Very happy today to introduce Bridget Bohacz. Bridget is president of Bridget Bohacz and Associates, and we work very closely with Bridget to imagine the spaces that we're providing for our residents and meet them where they are with their needs and expectations. So welcome, Bridget.
Thank you.
So Bridget, before we begin, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to specialize in senior living interiors?
Okay, so about 1985, I found myself working for Oxford Development out of Washington, D.C., and at that time they were developers, builders, managers, operators of only multifamily and then some office buildings and things and a little bit of healthcare. And then one day they decided they were going to dive into senior living. And the boss comes to us and says, we're going to start developing senior living and you're going to move over there. And a few others moved over there, and we formed this group called Oxford Retirement Services. And they had no idea what they were doing, so they brought in a lot of professionals, director of nursing, people that had experience at the time. It was far and few who really did, but they brought a lot of individuals in different fields together to develop a standards. And then from there, we were off running, developing, building their own, managing, marketing, doing it all in senior living. And it was off to the races. And it's been a good experience and a good run.
Well, Bridget, we met shortly after you began doing that, and I remember distinctly that at the time we thought that perhaps colonial architecture and bright red libraries was transformative and cutting edge. Talk to me a little bit about that experience and that thought that could apply to all of senior living.
Yeah, so at that time, I don't think anybody really knew what they were doing, and all they saw was that seniors were coming out of homes that were traditional. So they said, we've got to create senior living communities that are traditional. And so their attitude was, we'll develop a kit of parts, and this kit of parts can be used anywhere in the country. We can just place it in Florida, Texas, California, and seniors will like it because we think all seniors are traditional and like traditional furnishings and atmosphere and whatnot. And little thought was given to how they might want some individual styles and themes based on where the project was located or the community was located. So that's how it all came to be. And then over time, it evolved, and people then realized, well, no, seniors, like anyone, want some uniqueness and individual design styles and themes depending on where they're located and where they're living. So.
Right, and I think as operators, many of us appreciated, fell in love with those interiors, took very good care of them, but our prospective residents have told us they want something different. And as we look at what the resident of 2023 wants, what is the number one element in design that they focus on in the entire retirement community, including their apartment homes?
Okay, so I talked to several individuals that are specialist in each of these fields. And when the senior comes in or the prospect comes in and they're looking at their apartments in the sales process, they're looking at location. It's all about the location and the view and how close they are to the common spaces. But then once they're through that, and then they drill down and start looking at their apartment homes through what we call that personalization process, then the number one thing I'm hearing is space, storage space, and how they can compartmentalize and do interesting things because storage is so important to them. And then someone up in the north told me that's important, but no, because they're in the north, light and windows are the most important thing in their apartment home. So I think it's a little bit about where you're located.
So I know you have some different photos of interiors, and as we talk about what's important, I think as we begin this process, there's one area in particular of the retirement community that the residents are most have the most opinions and most thoughts about. Mm-hmm. So maybe we could start our presentation there.
Okay. So I think when we're talking about the commons areas, the number one concern that comes from the resident is always how many dining venues are there, how many options are there going to be for different menus and choices. And then looking at that a little bit further, today they're all looking at healthy choices. What are you offering us? And so we can start here. And this community is Beacon Hill up in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And they are a little unique in that they started a very large garden before anything. When the community first started, maybe 10 years ago, they were one of the first. And because it's Michigan, they just developed a very large garden, so that they were one of the first to look at this and say, let's introduce a healthy choice, a farm-to-table restaurant. And it's still going strong. And this was like phase 2 when they introduced this, but they had all the parts ready to go. They didn't have to develop a garden. They were already gardening and pulling in using so much of their food in their daily dining venues that this just became a natural evolution.
So, Bridget, people who are not from Michigan often joke about Michiganders needing a mitten to show everybody where they're from, but I see a depiction of Michigan on the wall, and it's more than that. It's not a wayfinding tool, it's something more, isn't it?
Yes. So this community started sourcing all of their foods that they were not able to grow. They grow a good deal of fruits and vegetables, but then they started sourcing everything else from local suppliers, just like any farm-to-table restaurant does today. So that map of Michigan shows any visitor, they're getting all their cherries from Traverse City, and I don't know how many hundreds of pounds he gets a year. They're getting all of their dairy from one farmer, all of their cheese from another source. And so they're sourcing all this, and that map tells you where all those sources are. And so it's quite fun. And then as things get added on, more sources, they put another dot on the map. And it's just a great way to show the visitor and remind the residents that they're sourcing all of this from local Michigan vendors.
Very nice.
Yeah. So you want to move on?
Yes, we'll go to the next slide.
Okay. So.
Oh, wow.
Just because I was talking about how the dining room is the number one concern or question mark when residents are looking at a new community, this goes, now we move down to Florida. And this community really did a nice renovation this past year and started branding and introducing, again, fresh ingredients, came up with Fresca as their name, and now it reflects Florida. You go in and you have a Florida menu. You have good, healthy choices, and it feels like Florida. It looks like Florida, and there's some great things going on. And they also introduced so many other parts of this to this dining room. So this bar, it serves as a juice bar in the morning and then a a liquor bar in the evening, kind of fluctuates between the two because everybody can't create everything. And then they have a little marketplace for those that want to purchase things and take them back to their residence.
Yeah, how have you seen that area evolve? We talk a lot about bars, both in the coffee bar sense and then in the pub sense.
The bar has just become a hub in some communities. And back on Beacon Hill, when we get to that, that bar has become the center of that community. It really has taken on a Starbucks or Barnes & Noble kind of atmosphere and has become a place where people will hang out all day long. They have coffee during the morning, breakfast, then they stay there and meet with residents, meet with friends. It's just like a Starbucks where I see people interviewing. Staff members will just go in a corner and interview, and it just really has become like the local coffee shop. So that's kind of cool. And then the liquor bar is a very important center for some communities who have those kinds of events, happy hours and such. And again, it becomes the focal point because they're hanging out there before dinner, after dinner, and so forth. So you want to move
Yes.
on? Okay. So then we're back to Beacon Hill. And the important thing here is in addition to changing the venue, you have to change the menu. So many people just think another venue and we can just serve the same food. But that doesn't cut it with seniors. They're looking when they say they're looking for choices, they want choices in food, not just a different view or a different kind of chair or something on the walls. And these people got it. So Beacon Hill started out. They had a nice kind of traditional dining venue. This was their first, and then they expanded with that garden and developed that farm to table dining venue. And that's the picture of the whole image there. And very casual, kind of industrial, but it allows them just to roll those fruits and vegetables in, and they don't have a concern in the world about cleaning up that space.
If you could go back just 1 second, because two things, as someone who's been in the industry for a long time, there are two things that are very different about this picture. One, at the beginning of my career, there were starch tablecloths and folded napkins, and I believe you've got a community table
Yes,
here, which
yes.
is a little bit different from what you typically see. Can you tell us how that has evolved?
Yeah, so in addition to that community table being there, all those tables are made of local wood. So that just adds to the green component and using local sources, not only food, but for other materials as well. But yeah, the community table came on, and people really embraced it because they in a community like this, people are friends. They have friends come in, they have family come in. There's all sorts of opportunities where they want to sit together, and instead of pulling tables together and pulling apart, the community table just made sense because these are people that know each other and want to sit together, and that table grows to like 20, 30 people when set up in a different way, and you'll often see that where it's just from wall to wall because everybody wants to sit together for a nice event.
And we can go to the next slide.
So then this is that bistro that's the heart of the community, and they really do a good job because they're into merchandising. And so many people in senior living forget about the merchandising aspect. If you're going to have a bistro, you want it. You want to showcase everything you're making. So they have a baker on staff who's been great, and they bake and they fill up those cases, and they're filled all day long. They make all sorts of things that they can sell, which is indifferent than what they're serving. And then they have a marketplace in the back. So during COVID, people got used to just having to take a package back to the room because the dining room's all closed. Now after COVID, those things are remaining because some people still like to do that. And they got used to, I don't really need to sit here. I need dinner, I want dinner, but I'll take it outside or I'll take it back to my room. So that component has lingered on. And then this, just out of the necessity of conserving space, they share a library. And that's another story, maybe for another day.
Time, absolutely.
But here, they gave up a little bit of library because they wanted more bistro. and then this just shows you what they're doing. They're merchandising. In that case, there's just nothing like you go up to Starbucks, and do you need pastries in the afternoon? Maybe not, but if they're showcased and they smell great, you're going to buy them and you're going to sit there.
You'll take them back for later, like you just said.
And we just have to think that we should be operating just like any establishment in the community. So
what do we have next?
Yes. And then they added another venue at the same time, a steakhouse. And again, it's a different look, but a different menu. So that is a little bit of an upscale steakhouse where the other venues have a different menu.
And the projects we're working on together, especially the Outlook at Windhaven and then the Bay of Vida, will also feature different dining venues rather than, as you saw at Beacon Hill, that first large congregate dining. Our residents are telling us they want the multiple choices.
Yeah.
Well, we're halfway through our time, and we've been in the dining room the entire time.
Okay, let's see.
So,
and just quickly, Tim, I think you just visited Mary's Woods. They're in the middle of Willamette Valley, wine country, so wine was the focus there. And so they're having lots of wine tastings, bringing in vendors because they can draw on all that local atmosphere, and again, the bar with the highlighting the wine sources in the back. Oh, and this is something new, and I don't think anybody else in senior living is doing this. So we all, hopefully, we've all heard about Italy now.
Absolutely.
You've got a great one in Dallas here, and they're all over the country. So this community in North Carolina is embracing that and bringing in that Italy concept for this big bistro. And they're going to have stations like you would see at Italy for the different kinds of food, pizza, chicken, pasta, and then maybe it'll change up and they could have an Asian menu at times, or maybe it is more meat and potatoes, but the idea is having different stations for a variety of different types of food. And you want to move on to performance halls?
We'll talk a little bit about that, because not every community has the ability to commit to large congregate spaces. So if we could take a quick look at what's going on there. This looks familiar.
Yeah. Yeah, so your space at PVN is shown here, and you can tell us what all the activities are that you're having in this room, because you also have a chapel where you host some of your events, but this is primarily for what?
Yeah, we are very fortunate that we have a large space dedicated for performances, large resident gatherings. At the top of the screen, that is actually prepared for Homefront Heroes Day, which one of our residents is sponsoring a holiday to recognize individuals who served at the Homefront during all the wars. He's 101 years old, and his goal is to make that a national holiday. So you can see our residents gathering there to enjoy that.
Yeah.
But you were able to take, and this was once, just very quickly, a very dark and unwelcoming space. And during our most recent reimagining of our commons, you brought a lot of light into a very dark space, Bridget.
Yes.
How was that possible?
We actually didn't touch the lighting, and it was all just taking down the old wall paneling and replacing it with light finishes. And the windows didn't really change. You have very small windows on one side of that room, which you don't see. And so we still aren't getting any natural light. So it was pretty much just changing the finishes, lightening up all the walls, the ceiling, and the floor. And now you've got a nice lighter space.
I think we have a couple more examples of theaters coming up.
Yeah, now this is a really interesting one. So again, Beacon Hill in Grand Rapids, they went all out, and it's a full-scale performance hall, and it seats about 250, but they did a great job with acoustics and with lighting, and a local theater group and music school have their home here now in this community. So it's very vibrant, and it brings in other generations, having children come there, practice all the time, and then having all sorts of events.
And continuing on with the theme, we'll talk very quickly about resident meeting venues and continuing education.
Yeah, so that's another very important thing right now going on in many communities. Residents kind of are given spaces, leftover spaces, and at PVN, you know how happy they were when you really gave them a devoted conference room and training
Absolutely.
center, and you have so many good spaces. You have 3-4 different rooms of different sizes to accommodate everything they want to do, and they really appreciate that. And up until I think recent times, they're just left to take the space they have and fit it into their schedule. Now here, we gave them a whole center which they really embraced. It's fun, it's colorful, it's just their space. It's very flexible. They can have all sizes. I love that ideas begin here. That just introduces and they feel comfortable. So they can do small group settings. They can do little book clubs or whatever, and they can move that room around. And then the light-filled room at the end is great because it was meant for art. And so people could go out on the balcony and paint and whatnot, but they also then realized, hey, this is great for yoga classes and things, watching the sun come up, and that same room can be used for yoga. So just devoting time and concentrating on something that they will embrace.
As we look at our time and we're coming to the halfway point, can we take a very quick look at the interiors of PVN and talk about lighting, and then maybe spend the last few minutes talking about what's going on in the apartment homes?
Okay, so we'll just quickly go through these. Again, this is just kind of piggybacks onto their expansion into an art space for that community. Lighting today has become art itself, and that you'll see that at PVN and this community and many where art, the light is not just lighting a space, it becomes a really beautiful focal point like you see here and here.
It's beautiful.
And then Mary's Woods, just introducing that community was one of the only ones I've worked with who developed some retail to allow the neighbors to come into the community and use spaces and mix with the seniors.
And that'll be a focal point in San Antonio. We also have the opportunity to do that.
Okay. And I'll just quickly go through those. That's Mary's Woods and Lake Oswego in the wine country. And then, again, a nice large fitness center. And they can do yoga outside, which is adjacent. And then they have a lot of opportunities for outdoor enjoyment, just like you do at PVN, enjoying the lake.
And we have ukulele players,
Yes?
Sue and Jude.
Okay.
I think they would very much enjoy meeting these folks. I think they enjoy a glass of wine as well.
Okay.
So,
maybe you ought to sign up as a sister community.
we could do that.
Yeah. So now in the apartment homes. So you started to ask, what are residents, what's the number one concern or request, or what's on their mind when they come into the apartment home?
And is this a cottage or?
This is an independent living apartment home. And as we said, the number one comment that we have is they have storage on their minds. And up in other parts of the country, they have light on their minds. They want a light-filled space with good natural light. And so you can see how that's really important here. And just the light is streaming in through that whole apartment all the way back to the living room.
This is actually one of ours, isn't it?
It is. It's and we'll move on. So a lot of things are happening depending on what part of the country you're in, and if you're an urban community or suburban. And like urban communities, you might have had, like you did at PVN, you had a large inventory of homes of various sizes, large cottages. So now you went down to a more efficient style apartment. This community went the other way. They're suburban and they're new. So they went, the competition had a lot of small apartments, so they went a little bit larger. So it just depends on what part of the city you're in and what your market is as to small or large. Another example of a larger kitchen in an apartment home. And then what's in the future? So you want to talk about
Absolutely. Let's talk about again, it seems like more choices, more flexibility, a lot of focus still on the kitchens, and I noticed windows and light.
Yes, so that is still the focus. As far as finishes go, there's a lot of trends, and we're just all about incorporating trends that are just in the whole marketplace. Multifamily kind of drives what we're doing because they're a bigger segment of the population as a whole, and they're using similar products. So what they start using, we eventually adapt. And one of the big trends is mixing it up, using a European-style cabinet. That'll become more popular as the years go on, the next few years. And then mixing the cabinets, introducing wood into the white, so you're not looking at just an all-white kitchen. So two popular ideas that we'll see in 2023 and going forward. And then just a whole host of other things that you'll see happening. Natural materials, whether they're real wood floors or faux wood floors, you'll see that. You'll continue to see that. The microwave under the counters. We're gonna have to do that. It's just a great saver on seniors' health and ease and comfort in living in their apartment homes in independent living. So I think that's going to show up in more and more communities.
I've noticed, Bridget, everything looks very high quality. And I know our consumers are coming, a lot of them from custom homes. And, we've spent the last several years in the pandemic and we've had difficulty in sourcing materials. Has that impacted your design choices?
Yes, but like everybody, it seems the pandemic was eons ago, and we forgot about all of our supply chain issues, and we've moved on, and so now we're back to business. I think everybody was ready to move on, and once those supply chain issues resolved themselves, now we're back and looking at what's available. And we're following that marketplace again, what's available in multifamily housing, and we're always looking at what's on the high end. So we're looking at the single-family homes in every marketplace like your own, and competing with what's out there in the single-family market. So we can really say we're giving them a luxury apartment atmosphere that's equal to what they would find if they were building a home or moving into another luxury apartment.
You mentioned at the beginning of our conversation personalization and people wanting to personalize spaces. What area do you see being touched the most in the apartment home?
Kitchen and bath. Just like we always want to think that seniors are different, but they're no different than if you're a 20-something-year-old, 30-something-year-old, 50, whatever, moving into a new home. The kitchen and the bath is the focus. And so with kitchens, these are some of the things that are happening in kitchen and bath trends across the United States, and we're going to implement those here because those same concerns and interests are happening in our world.
And they've grown in size, it appears. I know the residence that you showed that was a PVN actually has the large kitchen as the focal point of the residence by the windows.
Yeah, so that open kitchen is going to be around for a long while. And just like in all of our lives, that kitchen serves just not only as a place to eat meals, they're meeting, they're working at the island. They're maybe socializing around that island just like you might do at home. And so that's going to stay with us for the coming years.
We experience a lot of the residents gather in different residences prior to dinner. They do gather around the kitchen table, or the kitchen counter, I should say, in this case. In the old days, it was the kitchen table. Now it's the kitchen counter. I think we have a couple more slides before we wrap that have...
oh, yes.
Yeah. And I think this is really just a transition that we've been on as an organization. And before the podcast, Bridget and I were joking about we had really embraced our Brady Bunch past. And I think you had the opportunity to bring nature and light into our spaces.
Yes. So, so given the age of the building, I think this is a big transformation. And the one theme that you see running throughout this whole community is windows were added to bring more light into the space in so many different ways. And then that tree theme. The trees are so important to the residents. They have a beautiful tree-lined campus, and so we brought that tree theme inside. The light fixtures resemble sparkling lights in a tree, and then the tree theme in the back repeats itself in many different spaces. So we'll flip through these. There you go, light being added into this space with the addition of more open windows looking out into a beautiful courtyard. Same space there. An addition of the dining room and bringing a whole wall of light into that space. The tree theme appears here in the casual bistro, looking over into the fitness. And the library is just transformed in so many ways by adding light, bringing in natural light, and introducing good lighting around the bookcases. There's the tree theme again. This used to be a really low ceilinged restroom. Men's and women's were in here. And,
I was wondering if you're going to say that.
Yeah, no one could imagine what we could possibly do with. It's like an 8'6" ceiling. What could we do with that space? But it really just worked itself out nicely.
You know, we've been looking at these rooms empty, which is unusual because if you visit, especially Presbyterian Village North today, they're filled with people and just lots of things going on in them. I know we have a couple of other photos. This is one of the more popular areas, and this is the spot where everybody takes their photos.
Oh, yeah. So this was an enclosed space, and so the architects raised the ceiling, and now we have some wonderful light coming in. It's kind of the center of the space, center of the commons area that brings all this natural light in that lights all the areas around it in a beautiful way. You can talk about how they line up behind or in front of the green wall to get
They
their
do.
photos.
There's all sorts of photos going on, especially at happy hour, but we can move on to the next couple of photos.
Okay.
And now this is actually the outlook at Windhaven, and this is really a rendering of what those spaces are going to look like.
Yeah, so this is, the theme is the hill country. So it's a contemporary take on the hill country, bringing in wonderful natural elements from the surrounding hills, stone, exposing the wood trusses. And you'll see that happening outside and inside. All those outside materials continue inside, the stone, the wood, and it's just going to take on a very special theme and pertain very much to the hill country theme and lifestyle.
I think we have one more, don't we? And this is the Bay of Vida. Speaking of hill country, that's our newest collaboration that we're working on you with. And this is in San Antonio, Texas, in the La Cantera area. And I think we have the opportunity, Bridget, even to bring more of that aesthetic in. Any initial thoughts on this campus?
No, it's so early, so it's just a research time, gathering information. But the one thing that comes to my mind, San Antonio, is the history. So we'll definitely bring in the history of the area in by way of art and art objects and things to make that community special.
Well, and I think as we wrap, some key themes from this discussion is local is important, locally made, locally sourced is important. I noticed, and perhaps another time we talk, there's a great amount of local art and local artists featured in these communities. And we talked early about senior living once upon a time being a kit of parts, but I'm glad we've listened to the people we serve, and I'm glad we've been on a new journey with light-filled and active spaces. So really appreciate what you're doing to make the lives of the people that we serve better, and look forward to working with you on more projects in the future.
Thank you, and likewise.
Okay. Thank you for joining us today.